Long before the world knew of empires like Rome or the kingdoms of France, there rose a land bathed in sunlight and legend, Persia. A realm of shimmering gold, soul-stirring poetry, and epic conquest. Here, kings were not just rulers. They were chosen by destiny, their words shaping the fate of entire nations. And among these tales of glory and betrayal, one name echoes through the corridors of time: the Prince of Persia. He was not born into a world of silk and luxury. His true origins are wrapped in the mystery of the desert wind. Some say he was the forgotten son of a great king, while others whisper he was a commoner whose unmatched courage and skill eventually won him a place among royalty. Whatever the truth, his story begins in the very heart of the ancient Persian Empire, an empire that stretched from the scorching sands of Egypt to the lush valleys of India, ruled by the great dynasties of Cyrus, Darius, and Xerxes. Around 500 BCE, Persia was the jewel of the ancient world. Its cities, like Persepolis, glittered with marble palaces and magnificent gardens. Its people thrived under a system of wise governance, and its kings were revered as the shadows of God on earth. But within this golden age of prosperity, a dangerous ambition brewed, and ambition, as we know, often brings ruin. Our prince, known for his unmatched agility and a heart full of daring, lived in this age of both enlightenment and encroaching darkness. Trained by the finest royal warriors, he mastered the sword and the art of acrobatics, moving with a grace that seemed to defy gravity. His loyalty was absolute, pledged to his father's throne. That is, until fate led him to uncover a secret so powerful it would alter time itself. The sands of time. It all began with the conquest of a distant ancient city, a city rumored to guard a mystical artifact capable of bending the very fabric of time. The prince, young and eager to prove his worth, led the charge and successfully captured this treasure for his father. But in a moment of triumph and youthful arrogance, he unleashed its power, not realizing he had just doomed his entire world. The sands spilled like golden blood from the sacred dagger of time, and a terrible curse was unleashed. The living were transformed into twisted, monstrous sand demons, and entire kingdoms crumbled into sand-swept ruins. Only he, the prince, remained human, cursed to bear the crushing guilt of his mistake. His mission transformed from conquest to redemption. With every desperate leap across collapsing walls and every frantic sword clash against the relentless sand demons, he sought a way to undo the cataclysm he had caused. Guided by a flicker of hope and haunted by the silent screams of his people, he discovered that true courage is not the absence of fear, but the strength to face it head-on, even when all seems lost. On his perilous journey, through acts of betrayal and moments of unexpected love, he met the wise and valiant Princess Farah. Her profound wisdom was the perfect match for his raw valor. Together they fought not for power or for glory, but for the salvation of the world itself. As the desert sun burned high over the ruins of once great Persia, the prince finally came to face a terrible truth. The only way to save everyone was to sacrifice the very thing he desired most. In one final selfless act, he used the dagger to reverse time, sending the sands back into their hourglass prison. Life was restored to his people, the monsters vanished, and the palaces stood tall once more. But this came at a great cost. His own story, his heroic deeds, and his love for Farah were erased from their memory. He became a stranger in his own kingdom. And so the Prince of Persia faded from history, becoming a legend, half forgotten, half divine. His tale serves as a powerful reminder that history is not written in unchangeable stone, but in the countless choices we make, big and small. The sands of time flow on endlessly, and only those who act with honor and courage can truly hope to shape their destiny. From the ancient palaces of Persepolis to the whispers of modern historians, his spirit endures, a timeless symbol of courage, redemption, and the eternal battle between fate and free will. The prince may have vanished back into the sands, but his story remains forever carved in the heart of history, reminding us all that even one single soul has the power to turn back the tide of time. The sands had settled, but not for long. Though the prince restored time and saved his people, destiny is never satisfied. The past, once rewritten, demands its due, and so began a new chapter, one darker, more mysterious, and far more dangerous than before. The prince had returned to his kingdom, but peace had abandoned him. He was haunted by nightmares, shadows that whispered from the edges of reality. Each night, the sound of the hourglass breaking echoed in his dreams. Each morning, he awoke to find grains of sand falling from his own hands. The curse had not been undone. The sands of time still lived within him. This wasn't a blessing, it was a death sentence. To the world, he was a hero who had cheated death. But in the hidden currents of the timeline, he was an anomaly, a glitch that needed to be erased. He was a man marked for death by fate itself. Determined to escape this cruel destiny, he sought answers in forbidden lore, piecing together fragments of a myth whispered only by madmen and forgotten scholars. The legend of the Island of Time, a place lost to history where the Empress of Time herself was said to dwell. It was a desperate gamble, a journey to the very source of his curse. This was his only hope to sever his connection to the sands and reclaim his life. The journey was perilous. The seas roared like angry gods, and the prince's ship was torn apart by storms and treachery. It was as if the world itself was trying to stop him. Yet, his will was stronger than the waves. Stranded but alive, he washed ashore, the sole survivor on a beach of black sand and shattered wood. He pressed on, his goal in sight. The foreboding fortress that stood against the horizon, the island that could either free him or end him. This island was no mere landmass. It was a living puzzle, a labyrinth of lost civilizations, guarded by creatures born of time's distortion. Here, time flowed differently. Passageways shifted, bridges appeared and disappeared, and the architecture itself seemed to breathe. Days could feel like moments, and moments could stretch into an eternity. It was a place designed to break the mind. But the prince soon realized he was not just lost. He was being hunted, pursued by a being known only as the Dahaka, the guardian of the timeline. This was no ordinary monster. It was a dark, hulking figure forged from the sands themselves, an unstoppable force of nature. Its purpose was simple and absolute: to correct what should never have been changed. The prince had defied fate, and fate had sent its terrifying retribution. The Dahaka was relentless. It couldn't be fought, it couldn't be reasoned with. It was the embodiment of consequence. The only option was to run. In this relentless pursuit, the prince began to lose faith. Each fight, each fall, each scar was a brutal reminder that destiny could not be outrun. He was a man fighting his own shadow, and his shadow was winning. The hope that had carried him across the sea was beginning to crumble into despair. But deep within the crumbling ruins of the island, he discovered something that changed everything: the truth of his curse. Through ancient mechanisms and echoes of the past, he learned that he had not merely unleashed the sands of time. He had disrupted the sacred balance of creation itself. By saving himself, he had created a paradox, an unraveling thread in the grand tapestry of existence. And at the heart of it all was the Empress of Time. She had foreseen his arrival and awaited his decision. When they finally met, it was not a clash of enemies, but a meeting of destiny's reflections. The Empress, both divine and mortal, saw in him the same arrogance that once led the gods astray: the desperate need to control what cannot be controlled. She presented him with a stark choice: destroy the sands forever, and erase his own history, or be destroyed by them, consumed by the Dahaka. Yet she also saw something more in him, a flicker of hope, a resilience that defied even fate. In a desperate twist, the prince chose a third path. He would not destroy time, but rewrite it once again. He found an ancient forbidden relic, the Mask of the Wraith. This cursed artifact allowed him to exist in two timelines at once, a ghostly specter of his past self, destined to die so his present self could live. He became both the hunted and the hunter. Wearing the mask, he walked a razor's edge between life and death. He battled not just the monsters of the island, but the very darkness growing within his own soul. The mask fed on his despair, whispering promises of power at the cost of his humanity. This was no longer just a fight for freedom, but a battle for redemption. He had to prove he was worthy of the life he had stolen from fate. When he finally faced the Dahaka again, he understood its true purpose. It was not his enemy, but his consequence, a physical manifestation of his past mistakes. To conquer it, he had to accept his destiny, not deny it. He had to face what he had done. With one final act of courage, he embraced his fate. Using the power of the mask and his mastery over the sands, he didn't fight the dagger, but guided it. He restored the true flow of time, ensuring the sands were never created in the first place, thus resolving the paradox he had caused. When the storm cleared, the island was gone, swallowed by the sea as if it had never existed. The prince returned home, weary but wiser. The curse had lifted, but so had his illusions. He finally understood that time is not a chain to be broken, but a river to be understood, and that even a prince cannot escape the tides of destiny. He can only learn to swim within them. In the end, his story became more than a legend. It became a reflection of us all, our battles with regret, our yearning to change the past, and our courage to face the future, no matter how daunting. The Prince of Persia's journey reminds us that power without wisdom leads to ruin, but wisdom earned through struggle becomes eternal. The winds of the desert still carry his name, whispered through ancient ruins and forgotten tombs. For in every age there rises one who challenges fate. The winds of destiny are relentless. Even for a prince who had conquered time itself, peace remained a distant dream. After defying the monstrous dagger, he sailed for home, for Babylon, the jewel of the Persian Empire. He yearned to rebuild his life, to rule with the wisdom he had so dearly earned. But as his ship cut through the waters, a grim sight met his eyes. Smoke billowed from the horizon, staining the sky. The golden towers of Babylon, once symbols of power and prosperity, were engulfed in flames. His kingdom had fallen before he even set foot on its shores. He plunged into the chaos, his heart a leaden weight in his chest. The city he loved was a ruin, its streets echoing with the cries of the innocent. And there, amidst the fire and ruin, stood a ghost from his past. The vizier, long thought dead, had returned. The very man whose betrayal had first unleashed the sands of time was back, reborn and twisted by their power. This time, the vizier's ambition wasn't for a mere throne. He craved immortality itself. The dagger of time, once the prince's greatest burden, was now the vizier's weapon. With it, he commanded a terrifying army, not of men, but of sand and shadow, monstrous beings born from corrupted magic. The prince fought with everything he had. His blade became a blur of motion, a silver flash in the smoky air. His movements were as swift and unpredictable as the desert wind, honed by countless battles and impossible escapes. But he was not the same man who had first stumbled upon the sands. Time, loss, and every hard-won lesson had reforged him. The arrogant pride of his youth was gone, replaced by a fierce determination to fight for something greater than himself. He fought for redemption. He fought for peace. He fought for the memory of every soul he couldn't save. In the heart of the chaos, a familiar face appeared. Kaylina, the Empress of Time. The very woman whose life he had saved, now once again entangled in his fate. She revealed a horrifying truth. The sands of time were not just a force of nature. They were now intrinsically tied to his very soul. To destroy them for good, he had to confront a darkness that had been growing within him. A shadow born from his deepest regrets, his burning rage, and every mistake that haunted his past. It thrived on hatred, whispering temptations of power every time he was near the sand's influence. This was no longer just a battle of swords. It was a war for his own spirit, a desperate struggle between the man he was and the monster he refused to become. As Babylon crumbled around him, the prince began his final ascent. He climbed the burning Tower of Babel, where the vizier waited drunk on his newfound power. The final confrontation was not just for a kingdom, but for the soul of Persia itself. The vizier attacked with the fury of a self-proclaimed god, his power seemingly limitless. But the prince, weary yet unbroken, stood his ground. He fought not for glory or for a crown, but for justice. With a final desperate surge of strength, He drove the dagger of time deep into the vizier's heart. The sands of time and the man who commanded them were shattered forever. A brilliant explosion of light ripped through the fabric of time itself, a cleansing storm that washed over the world. When it cleared, silence fell upon Babylon. The curse was broken, the vizier was gone. But so was Kalina. Her sacrifice had restored the world's balance, but it left the prince alone once more, the weight of her loss heavy on his shoulders. When he awoke, the palace was a skeleton of what it once was. Dawn was breaking over the Tigris River, painting the ruins in soft light. His wounds ached, but for the first time in an age, his heart felt lighter. He looked into a pool of water and saw his reflection, but he wasn't alone. The Dark Prince, his shadowy other half, watched him one last time. "You can't be rid of me," the shadow whispered, a final taunting echo. The prince just smiled softly. "I no longer need to be," he replied. With those words of acceptance, the shadow vanished, and he was finally, truly free. He walked through the broken gates of his city, the morning sun warming his face. Slowly, people began to emerge from the shadows, survivors, not victims. In their eyes, he was not a hero, not a king, not even a prince. He was simply a man who had refused to let darkness win. History might forget his name, but his deeds would echo through eternity. For true heroes are often lost to the tides of time, but their courage becomes a timeless legend. The journey of the Prince of Persia ended not with conquest, but with understanding. He learned that power fades, that kingdoms fall, and that time itself is a fragile thing. But the heart that fights for what is right, that endures through suffering and chooses hope over despair, that is a force that never truly disappears. And so, the legend lives on, in every story of redemption, every act of courage, and in every soul that dares to defy its fate. Thank you, son. You've probably heard of the Prince of Persia, a legend filled with daggers, treacherous sands, and the power to bend time itself. It sounds like pure fantasy, right? But what if I told you that behind this myth lies a real civilization, one so powerful, so advanced, and so wise that its influence still echoes through the centuries? That civilization was ancient Persia. Long before many of the world's great empires rose to fame, Persia was a dazzling vision emerging from the desert. It was a kingdom of brilliant architects, profound poets, fierce warriors, and visionary philosophers. From the rugged mountains of Elam to the shining plains of Persepolis, Persia became a symbol of order in a world of chaos, a beacon of light against the encroaching darkness. The real princes and kings who ruled this land were figures whose actions shaped the destiny of half the known world. The story of the real Persian princes begins with a man named Cyrus the Great, born around 600 BCE. Much like the fabled Prince of the Game, Cyrus was a unifier, ending endless wars and bringing divided lands together. But his greatest weapon wasn't a sword, it was compassion. When he conquered the mighty city of Babylon in 539 BCE, he didn't leave a trail of destruction. Instead, he did something unprecedented. He freed its people, rebuilt their temples, and allowed exiled nations to return to their homelands. His decree, inscribed on what we now call the Cyrus Cylinder, is considered by many to be the world's first declaration of human rights. If the Prince of Persia sought redemption through magical means, Cyrus achieved it through real-world justice. He taught the world that true greatness isn't found in ruling by fear, but by earning respect through mercy. After Cyrus came Darius the Great, the architect of Persia's golden age. It was he who raised Persepolis from the ground, a city designed to mirror the heavens. Imagine marble staircases carved with intricate scenes of unity, showing people from all corners of the empire bringing gifts, not as conquered subjects, but as respected partners. Its towering columns rose like pillars of eternity. Here, emissaries from 20 different nations gathered under one roof, a testament to an empire held together not just by military might, but by a shared vision. Darius was a master organizer. He established a network of roads that spanned thousands of miles, created one of the world's first postal systems, introduced a standardized coinage, and governed with a sense of fairness. He literally turned chaos into order, much like the prince turning back the sands of time to right a terrible wrong. Following Darius was his son Xerxes, a king whose ambitions burned as brightly as the desert sun. His legendary wars with the Greek city-states became the stuff of epic poems, a clash of civilizations that would be remembered for millennia. Yet, even in the face of setbacks, the Persian spirit never broke. The empire remained vast, its culture vibrant, and its influence undeniable. It is in the echoes of these real kings, their virtues and their flaws, that the legend of the Prince of Persia may have been forged. In the prince, we see the mercy of Cyrus, the wisdom of Darius, and the proud ambition of Xerxes. He isn't just one man. He's the embodiment of Persia itself, a civilization constantly tested, forever seeking balance between power and humility. Even when the empire eventually fell to the forces of Alexander the Great, the Persian legacy didn't just disappear. It transformed. It lived on through Zoroastrianism, one of the world's first great monotheistic faiths. This religion preached that life is an eternal struggle between good and evil, light and darkness, truth and deceit. Does that sound familiar? The internal battle the prince faces against his shadowy alter ego, the Dark Prince, is the very same conflict that Zoroaster taught was raging inside every human soul. Centuries passed, and the stories of Persia's glory were kept alive not just in stone, but in words. Storytellers known as naqals would gather in bustling bazaars, weaving incredible tales of heroes who could leap across rooftops, battle demons, and defy fate itself. These oral traditions inspired some of the greatest works of literature, like Ferdowsi's epic poem, the Shahnameh, or the Book of Kings. In its pages, the struggles of legendary heroes like Rostam became immortal, ensuring the spirit of ancient Persia would never be forgotten. Today, we might know the Prince of Persia through video games and movies, but his essence is truly timeless. He represents an eternal truth, that power must be tempered with justice, that courage is meaningless without compassion, and that time, no matter how it twists and turns, can never erase a legacy built on wisdom. If you travel to Iran today, you can still see the ruins of Persepolis, standing silent and majestic against the sky. Its weathered walls still whisper stories of kings, dreamers, and a civilization that dared to build a better world. And if you listen closely to the desert wind, you might just hear the echo of the prince's voice. He is more than a character. He is an idea, a powerful reminder that every one of us, no matter how lost we feel, can find our way back to the light. The sands of time have buried empires and raised new ones, but the spirit of Persia, a cradle of culture, philosophy, and resilience, endures. The winds of time have never stopped whispering. Centuries have passed since the fall of the mighty Persian Empire. The golden palaces have turned to dust. The once majestic marble columns of Persepolis now stand silent under the relentless sun, and the vibrant tales of the Prince of Persia have faded into the soft whispers of legend. Yet, as history so often proves, legends never truly die. They simply wait. Buried beneath layers of sand and silence, they lie in wait for the perfect moment to rise again. In the heart of modern-day Iran, near the ancient ruins of Pasargadae, the final resting place of Cyrus the Great, a team of archaeologists made a groundbreaking discovery. They believed they had found an ordinary royal tomb, just another piece in the vast puzzle of history. But deep inside, they found something that seemed to defy time itself. Hidden behind thick layers of stone was an ancient chamber, sealed far tighter than any burial vault they had ever encountered. Its walls were covered with inscriptions that shimmered in the low light, almost like swirling gold dust. At the very center of this secret chamber, resting on a pedestal, lay a crown. But this was no ordinary crown of gold or gems. It was forged from a strange, dark metal, intricately etched with symbols that looked like sand flowing through an hourglass. They called it the Lost Crown of Persia. The local villagers, hearing of the discovery, whispered that it was cursed. The scholars, their curiosity piqued, argued it was older than Cyrus himself, a relic from a forgotten age. But it was one specific inscription, carved in Old Persian, that sent a collective chill through the air. "He who wears this crown shall command time, but lose himself to it." From that moment forward, a series of strange and unsettling events began. Sophisticated instruments malfunctioned without explanation. Clocks and watches stopped dead. The desert sands around the excavation site shifted and swirled unnaturally, as if stirred by unseen, ghostly hands. The air grew heavy, thick with an untold history, and every footstep within the ancient ruins seemed to echo with footsteps from another, long-gone era. Among the archaeological team was a young, brilliant historian named Armin Darvishi. His family name could be traced back centuries, linking him to ancient royal bloodlines. For years, Armin had dedicated his life to studying the myths of the Prince of Persia, always believing they were beautiful metaphors for heroism, not actual historical memories. But as he stood before the newly discovered crown, he felt something deeper, a powerful resonance, a connection that vibrated through his very being, as though history itself was breathing through him, awakening something dormant within his soul. That night, under the pale light of the desert moon, Armin dreamed. He saw a figure, robed in magnificent ancient armor, his hand clutching a dagger that glowed with the light of golden sand. It was the prince himself. His voice, ancient and powerful, echoed through the darkness of Armin's dream. The sands never die. They return to those who remember. Armin awoke with a jolt, his heart pounding in his chest. A terrifying realization dawned on him. The crown was gone from its display case. He looked down and saw the sands beneath his tent moving, swirling into intricate patterns that formed the ancient, unmistakable symbol of time. The next morning, his colleagues found him wandering aimlessly through the ruins, his eyes wide with visions of a world they couldn't see. "He's speaking Old Persian," they whispered in awe and fear. "He's speaking words no one has spoken for 2,000 years. From that day on, the legend of the prince returned, not as a bedtime story, but as a living, breathing presence. People all across the region began reporting sightings of a shadowy figure near ancient sites. A figure who moved with an inhuman grace, as if gliding between moments in time. Some said he was a guardian, protecting something precious. Others claimed he was a wanderer searching for something he had lost. Armin Darvishi vanished soon after. The only thing left behind was his journal. His final entry, written in trembling, hurried hands, revealed a chilling truth. "I thought the prince was a myth, but he is real, not as one man, but as every soul who dares to challenge fate. The sands of time are alive, and they have chosen again." And so, the story came full circle. The Prince of Persia was never meant to be just a hero of the past. He was a guardian of balance, a timeless symbol of humanity's eternal struggle against the unyielding grip of destiny. Whether born in opulent palaces or discovered among desolate ruins, the prince rises whenever time itself begins to fracture and fall out of balance. The lost crown remains hidden once more, sealed away by the ever-shifting sands. But every whispering dune, every ancient echo carried on the desert wind serves as a powerful reminder. The past is never truly gone. It watches. It waits. And when the world forgets its heroes and its history, the sands will awaken once again. As the sun sets over the timeless ruins of Persepolis, the wind carries a voice. Faint, distant, but unmistakable. The sands remember. Do you? And thus ends the saga of the Prince of Persia, a legend of so much for watching this journey unfold with me. If you enjoyed this story, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel for more tales of courage and adventure. Until next time, stay brave.